All right, guys, what's up? This one's a little different because Kip Sorensen, my typical and usual co-host, is on a little family business right now. So we called in our designated hitter, Mr. Sean Villalobos. What's up, brother? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to be here. It's always fun.
I don't think you and I actually have done an AMA together. You've done probably half a dozen or maybe even more with Kip, but I don't think you and I have done one, have we?
I think we've done one. I think so.
Have we? All right. Well,
I
who
don't know.
knows, man? At this point it all blends together. I've been
It
traveling
does.
so much, and man, I've got so much on my plate. I just got back from Western Hunt Expo, which was really cool. Have you ever been to that, by the way?
I haven't. No, never.
Yeah, it's a really cool event. I try not to miss it. We missed last year only because they didn't hold it last year, but outside of that, we've hit, I think this is either our fourth or fifth year, and like I said, it's a great show. And I took my two oldest boys, and they were asking me, Dad, what's going to be your favorite part? I'm like, all the hunt stuff's cool. Like I geek out on some of that stuff, but more than anything, it's just to be able to see old friends and have cool conversations and connect with people you haven't connected with for a year or longer. So we had a good time, man. How about you? What's going on with
That's
you?
great. Oh my gosh. This last week was crazy. In the last 8 days, bought a house, had
Yep.
my 20th wedding anniversary, and
Congrats.
uh, and then took my boys to the Super Bowl yesterday.
Oh,
So
you did?
yeah,
How was that?
it was hectic. It was fun. It was interesting because you go to something like that and then people find out, obviously. And I got all these messages from people like, oh man, I don't like the NFL. I don't like watching it. It's overpriced players. It's all this stuff. You get so many messages like
Oh, yeah,
that.
sure.
You also get good ones like, oh, to have fun and all that stuff. But for me, it's just about I wouldn't have gone. I've actually turned down going to the Super Bowl a few times because just haven't been interested. But it's my boys' favorite team, and they both love playing football, and they're right here in LA, right? While we
Yeah.
still live in LA. And it's like, why wouldn't I go and have that
Where was it?
experience
Was it
with
in
them?
LA?
Yeah, it was at SoFi Stadium. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't even know. Somebody asked, I yesterday found out who was playing in the Super Bowl. Actually, no, I take that back. I did know the Rams were playing, but I didn't know they were playing the Bengals. And I don't even, who won? I don't even know who won.
The Rams won. Yeah.
The
It,
Rams won.
it was
Okay. Well,
epic.
there you
And
go.
like in the last minute of the game too. It was a phenomenal experience for my boys to be there and everything. It was like everything you hope for. You're going to do something like that with your family. It
Yeah.
was really cool. But I'm
I
usually in
get
the
it,
same boat
man.
as you. I usually don't know who's in, where the game's being played, all that. It's like it's me too. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's an interesting topic though, because you look at so many people look at kind of the league and all that stuff. Like I don't wear someone's name on my back. I'm not into jerseys and into kind of
Yeah,
like
sure.
idolizing the players, but I do love winning, and I love greatness, and I love being able to watch that and experience that, and then to be
I
there with my
agree.
boys and be able to teach that to them. That's what I did it for, not because
Yeah.
I'm involved
Yeah.
in wanting to celebrate someone else's win, if that makes sense.
No, I get it. I think in moderation, it makes total sense. And like you said, with the boys, I've taken my kids to baseball games. I grew up in Southern California until I was about 14, so I used to watch the Angels play all the time. So my oldest son and I last year had the opportunity to go see an Angels game. And when I was a kid, we didn't have any money, so if
Yeah,
we went and
us
watched a
too.
game, I was in the nosebleeds. And I remember sitting in the nosebleed section, always thinking, man, wouldn't it be awesome to sit behind the plate? And so when Brecken and I went last year, we were looking at tickets, and I'm like, screw this. Like, I've always wanted to sit behind the plate. And we sat, I think, 5 or 7 rows up, right behind the plate. It was an awesome experience, man. And like you said, if you're doing it for your kids and you can teach them about greatness, I think that's important. The part I have a problem with is crybabies complaining about how hard their life is when, they're making millions of dollars. They're idolized, they're worshipped, they're playing a game. Yes, there's a level of greatness with that, but I don't want to be political at all anymore. I just want those guys to play great, do great, succeed, teach us about greatness, and then not to say they can't have a political opinion. Of course they can, and they should. I hope they would, but I don't want to hear about it. I'm not there to hear about it. If I want to follow
Yeah.
you on Twitter or somewhere else, yeah, I'll hear about your politics because that's what I'm signing up for. But outside of that, I just want you to play the damn game and do what you're paid to do. Period. Bottom line.
I agree.
Just like at
Totally
any
agree.
other job. Like I wouldn't go to the gas station and hope that the gas station attendant or the gal at the convenience store would tell me about all her political leanings. I just want to buy my Coke and get on with my day, and that's what I get frustrated about more than anything else.
Yeah, I agree. Well, at the end of the day, they're entertainers, right? Yeah, and I'm not taking away the top level of their athleticism in saying that, but that's what games are. They're entertainment, right? And if you're entertaining
Yeah.
people, I think you should focus on the positive in that. That's kind of your job, in my opinion. And any of the stuff that's gonna, I guess you could say, kind of polarize things and make people angry. It's cool if you voice your opinion, but let's not do it on the field. Let's not do it
Yeah.
during the show, right?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and I don't even discount, and I don't think you were, but I think a lot of people tend to lean towards, oh, they're just entertainers. It's like, well, I'm not discounting that. Like I'm an entertainer, right? We're here
Yeah.
entertaining, educating, informing. The gal at the convenience store is doing her job. The banker at the bank that you bank with is doing his or her job. Like everybody's doing their job, and not that one is more important or less important. The guy picks up my trash. The school teacher teaches our kids. Like not that one is more or less important than the other. It's just that when I go to the convenience store, I just want you to ring up my Coke. If I go to the gas station, I just want you to ring up my gas, or at the grocery store, the food. If I go to the bank, I just want you to give me the money that I'm taking out of my account. I don't need any of that other bullshit. That's the problem I have.
Well, and that's what I'd like, is that there's plenty of guys, if we're talking about the NFL, yeah, you have the crybabies, but there's also plenty of guys that have
100%.
For me, the character that I want my boys to know and understand, right? Like the MVP last night was a guy named Cooper Kupp, who's the best receiver in the league, and he plays for the Rams. And the dude is just one of those straight up
Is he a
hard
receiver? Is he a
workers.
tight end? I saw something about, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, no, he's a wide receiver. He's the best receiver in the league. The guy's amazing.
Okay. Because he
and
blocks. I saw something about how hard he blocks. So he was selling those blocks and would go out for fades. And I saw him catch a touchdown yesterday while I was sitting in the airport or something. I can't remember, but yeah,
he
he seems solid.
Everything hard. They had a 4th and 1 in the last drive, and their running back wasn't doing anything the whole game. He was just getting stuffed, and they ran a play as a run for him. So he went in motion, and they handed the ball off to him, and he got like 8 yards for the first down. And that last drive was all him and the quarterback, but he's just one of those dudes. Great guy, loves the game, works his butt off. That's all he cares about, to do his job, nothing else. And, those traits, that's the stuff I talk to my boys about. Right. And they like that in him. They like, his positivity. They like his gratitude. They, all those things. And, that's what I like about it.
Well, and then the other thing you should be doing is you should be curating who you're paying attention to. So I bring this up because, like, this guy, I don't know him, I don't follow him or know who he is, but one person that comes to mind is somebody that I've been talking with for a bit, and then you reintroduced us just a couple of weeks ago, and that's Justin Wren. So
he's such a stud,
as of the release of today's podcast, we just released his podcast yesterday. And This is a guy who has fought at the top echelons of mixed martial arts between Bellator and UFC. And yet it's not his performance in the octagon that I'm most impressed with. No. It's his performance outside of it that I am. And so now you start to curate. This is the problem I have when people complain about Facebook. It's like, well, yeah, I know Facebook's doing some shady stuff. Trust me, I know more than most people what they do to manipulate what you see in the data. Okay. I know more than most of you listening about it. But also you have a responsibility in curating that. And then when you find a professional athlete like Justin Wren, who, incredible athlete, incredible performer, but what he's doing outside of the ring, those are the types of individuals that we ought to latch onto and learn from and grow from.
Yes. And he is the crazy thing with Justin. He is inexplainably one of the best humans you'll ever meet in your life.
No doubt.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you syncing us back up, because we had talked a bit, and then I don't know what happened. Again, life's so busy, but you had messaged. I'm like, all right, let's make this happen. So I reached out to Justin, and yeah, we made it happen. We had a great conversation. So if you guys haven't listened, go I'm looking forward to that podcast. Yeah. All right, man. Well, let's get into some questions today. These ones are coming from Facebook. So I'll let you fill in for Kip, and you'll ask the questions and we'll riff on them.
All right. First one is from Patrick Wagner.
I wonder how Kip would have pronounced that.
Yeah. Wagner, maybe.
All right. Patrick Wagner. Kip, we love you, brother. We're thinking about you.
How do you stay the course and perform in a culture where it's typical to do just enough to complete a job?
Oh, that's the best place to do it. If you're in a culture that's underperforming, and you're in a culture that celebrates and fosters and encourages mediocrity, and then all of a sudden you come in, look, there's going to be people who don't like you. Let's just take the job environment. The people who are being mediocre, they're going to hate you, because you're going to show everybody else what's possible, and you're going to do one of two things. You're going to piss them off. There's no doubt about that. Those are the underperformers. But the ones who actually have potential, you're going to actually elevate them and show them what's possible and shine as a beacon for their own performance. And both are good. If you have underperformers who are pissed off at you because you're exceeding expectations, good. You don't want them in your organization. You have a powerful opportunity to recreate culture right here. And a lot of people say, well, what can one person do? One person turns into two turn into four turn into 8. And before you know it, all those weak ass guys hanging around, mooching off the system, leave because they can't handle what you're doing. And the ones who didn't have an example of what could be done are inspired by what you're doing. So you're in the best place to be, which is a culture that's broken, potentially degenerate, celebrates mediocrity. Good, rise above and set yourself apart from the pack. This is the best place to do it. But also, one other thing on that is that requires you finding your own energy, because you're not going to get it from your crew. Like we're surrounded, Sean. I know what you do with your line of work. You're surrounded by high performers. I'm surrounded by high performers deliberately and intentionally. We've cultivated that environment. You're probably not going to get it. So you need to create it for yourself, which is challenging at times because it gets frustrating. I get that. But what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go outside of your work environment and find good friends, high caliber people that are doing work, getting it done, going to conferences, going to events. So what you need to do is find some of that outside of your culture until you can create it where you currently are.
Yeah, I was going to say that. And, I had the thought when I saw the question that if you can't change your culture, which is one of two things, that you are either going to do what you said, or if it just doesn't catch, maybe you push and you push for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and it's just not kind of catching, then you move, right? You move on, you go somewhere else, you find, but, I also want to say, like in with what I do, actually the majority of the time, you're not dealing with high performers. You're actually, for me, I'm most of my time spent is trying to lift up and teach and train and, find leaders. And so, to build them up to basically kind of replace me. Right. And that's always consistently happening. And so, but I have to place myself in an environment, which is what you said, to be around high performers, to keep me on my game, right? To keep me on point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a valid point. And one thing I would also say about where you talked about changing your culture or environment is a lot of guys think the grass is greener on the other side, right? Yeah. Like, oh, well, my place sucks, so I'm going over there. You actually might be right. It's not always, not exclusively, but in this case, you might be right. It might be better somewhere else. But I'll tell you what, you're going to perform better on that side of the fence where the grass is greener if you decide to perform better today. Yeah. Right? Like if you bitch and you moan and you cry and you complain and you settle like all these other people around you are, Like, don't you for 1 second believe that that's going to change on the other side of the fence just because you happen to go over there. If you
Yeah.
start to improve yourself here where you currently are by developing the skill sets you need, by surrounding yourself with the right people, by trying to inspire those around you, the grass on the other side of the fence, if you end up going over there, is going to be infinitely better because you made yourself better where you are today. So don't think that it's only the external that's going to change. The internal has to change as well. And that will put you leaps and bounds ahead of those people who are just chasing the green grass wherever they go.
Well, and you also, if you don't try to give it your everything and move that needle where you're at, you're not going to learn enough to know what to look for in the next place to make sure it's a better place.
Well, yeah. I mean, it might create opportunities for you too, right? Because if you're out there performing and excelling and exceeding, guess who else is doing that, or at least interested in that? There might be somebody in your organization. Maybe it's a C-level executive or something like that, or even the owner. I mean, maybe even the owner acknowledges and recognizes what's going on, but he sees you as the one guy who's kicking ass. Man, that's going to create a ton of opportunities that aren't going to be available for anybody else.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Next question.
Next question is from Christopher Benjamin. Man, I'm getting the softballs.
Kip's gonna be like, those are easy. Of course you can pronounce those right. Those are easy names.
I've led men's groups of varying sizes since 2013. Recently, I found that my circle isn't challenging me or holding me accountable to the goals I'm striving for. To that end, I've gone through the process of reaching out and gathering a group of high achievers that I admire and look up to, established a mission statement, and have clear stated expectations for this group. What else can I do to make sure this group gets off on the right foot?
Well, look, I mean, this ties into what we were talking about earlier with going out and creating that culture. So first and foremost, I commend you for doing that. Most people won't do that, by the way. They'll sit around and they'll wait for somebody else to do it. Like Order of Man shouldn't even be a business. It shouldn't be a movement. Like, because all of you should be doing it, but not all of you are. And so I did. And so we create this thing and people are like, oh man, you're so lucky. Oh, woo, woo. No, I just went out and did what you wanted and what you were unwilling to do for yourself, which I'm happy with. I'm good. I'm good with that. And that's why we've talked about in the past of, look for the ability to lead where the void of leadership exists, right? If there's a void, don't complain about that. Be grateful that something's missing, because that gives you an opportunity to do it. So the only thing I would say that you should do, you've created the mission statement, clear objectives, expectations, all that kind of stuff. What I would say is make sure there's a level of challenge built into it. I don't know what specifically that looks like. I don't know what kind of organization it is. I don't know if it's revolving around faith and church, for example, or entrepreneurship. I don't know those details, but I'll tell you what, I think men, especially high achieving men, thrive best under challenge. I mean, that's why we're talking about the Super Bowl. That's a challenge, right? Those guys are pitting themselves against another team, pinnacle athletes, the pinnacle of their achievement. They're trying to improve. They're trying to get better. They're trying to dominate on the field, and high achievers always rise to a challenge. We do that inside the Iron Council. We offer assignments. We offer weekly challenges. We're holding each other accountable. Of the 50 plus teams that we have in play right now, I know that the team leaders who challenge and confront their team members are typically and generally performing much better than those team leaders who don't do that at all. So look for ways to challenge each other in meaningful and significant ways, not just a challenge, but it has to be directed towards something meaningful. And I think you're going to call a lot of excellence out of these guys and even out of yourself.
Yeah. And I think you nailed it in the beginning when you mentioned how people say, oh, you're so lucky. And it's so funny how often you hear that. But that's after not seeing maybe it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of blood, sweat, tears, that you putting yourself into positions to have the associations and, the environment and the culture that you're in and that you've surrounded yourself by and all the work that's involved in that. And so I think you're spot on, and he's taking all the right steps in my opinion.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is we get these kind of questions quite a bit where like, what else can I be doing type questions. And I like the question because it to me, it communicates desire to improve and get better. Right. So it's a good question. The challenge is that sometimes you're doing the right thing and it just takes time to see the progress. Lifting weights is a great example. You know, you hire a trainer, somebody who's well qualified, somebody who has lots of experience, and they start training you and you see a little result immediately, and then it kind of plateaus, and then maybe a little more, and then it plateaus, but your growth isn't as quickly as you'd like to see it. And a lot of men will throw in the towel, and or their last question is like, well, what else can I be doing? And they'll mess everything up when really all they had to do was just be what Andy Frisella says is aggressively patient. Meaning you're still working the system, you're still working the plan, you're still doing the action steps, and you're being patient in that you know the results will take care of themselves as you do. So never use again, I know where this question's coming from. It's coming from a good place, but never use it as an opportunity or a gap or an opening that leads you into throwing in the towel. Like it's not happening fast enough, so it must not be working. So like I'm done. It's like, no, sometimes it takes you 6 months or a year or 5 years. In the case of Order of Man, we've been going at this for almost 7 years now. You know, people will say, oh, Ryan, I can't believe this person. Oh, you did that. Yeah, you did. Yes, 7 years of doing the work. So don't discount it just because you're not experiencing it as quickly as you would like. That's the word of caution on that one.
Yeah, I would say that is if he's looking for what else, he's obviously excited about what he's doing. Then I would say what else you need to do is stay excited. And that's where most people lose or that's where they plateau is the excitement level wears off. It becomes monotonous. It becomes a quote unquote grind. And again, that's the work though. That's the necessary steps and actions that you need to take to get those A+ results, but you have to be excited about it. And if he's excited about it, then that's the what else, in my opinion, and stay excited.
Well, so here's another thought. So when I started podcasting, I had, a little old computer on a broken desk that was my wife's grandfather's. In fact, the desk is still over there in the corner, still use it, in a spare bedroom in our house in Southern Utah. I think I was recording on a $60 microphone or something like that. And I had that thought of like, okay, well, what else? What else should I be doing? What else? And instead of going out in 1,000 different directions, what I decided to do instead was for my what else question was to improve what I was currently doing. So I didn't go out and do a bunch of other things. I'm like, okay, well, now I need a video camera. Okay, now I need a better microphone. Okay, I need to learn how to ask better questions. I need to figure out how to get better, more high caliber guys on the podcast. So I didn't go out in 1,000 different directions. That to me is a mistake that a lot of people make. Instead, double down on what you're doing. If you're still finding interest in it, don't be reckless with it. But if you're still finding interest with it and you are producing some results, double down. I've got a guy coming out next month who is a professional video and audio engineer, and we're going to rework this entire studio to make sure that we have the right camera equipment, the audio is what it needs to be doing. We've got the boards, we've got the setup, we've got the angles, we've got the lighting. It's not what else, it's how can I make this even better than it is right now?
Yeah. And that's, as you've said that, I think most people don't do what you just said. Kind of the exterior things, that fine tuning to make it better, and you talked about the audio and video and everything else. It's also internally your energy, right? The increase of energy, the increase of voice, the listening to what you're producing on the front end over and over and over again. So you can say, oh man, I had too many filler words. I had this, I lowered my energy. I didn't increase my voice, all the things that maybe don't come naturally to you. I think just in doing this right now, naturally, I'm pretty soft spoken. I don't say tons and tons, and I'm not loud at all when I speak to people naturally. But I know when I'm in an environment where I'm trying to get some sort of a result, I have to step up that energy. I have to step up my game. So even right now, talking to you, I almost feel like I'm yelling into this microphone. And that's not the natural way that I generally communicate with people. But I know that to get good results or to be at my best, that's what I need to bring.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good call. I wrote down here as you're doing that, because a lot of people won't do that. They won't break apart or break down their own performance, whether you're speaking on stage, like I know you do, or speaking behind a microphone, which is what I tend to do more of. So they won't look at it because they're embarrassed or they don't want to hear themselves. Like, you got to get over that.
And it's the
You
worst.
have to.
I hate hearing
It's the
my own
worst,
voice.
of course.
I hate it.
I mean, there's world-class actors who, I've heard they won't go watch their movie. It's like, well, why? Like, why would I get why you don't? I get that. So I'm asking that a bit rhetorically, but you ought to critique it. And so there's a word choice that I would suggest that you use, that you change. I used to say, well, you need to be critical of your own performance. I actually don't think that's entirely accurate. I think the better choice of words is analytical of your performance.
I like
so when you're saying critical, it's like, okay, I'm going to look for everything that's wrong. Okay, that was wrong, and that was bad, and this was wrong, and I didn't do this good. It's like, okay, that's not going to go anywhere, but instead analytical, right? So, hey, you know what? My inflection was off a little bit, so I need to tweak that. My tempo, I was a little too hurried. That's my default. I go through things really, really quickly. So I need to slow the tempo down. You personally might need to speed it up a bit, right? But now it's more analytical. And so you're not attaching any sort of weird meaning to your performance. You're just being very analytical about what's working, what isn't working, and objectively what needs to improve. But you don't attach it to your self-worth or how good of a person or how bad of a person you are. It's just an objective, analytical look into your performance and how you can improve.
I like it.
What's next?
All right. Next question is from Michael Cooper. I love these
Easy,
guys.
getting T-ball questions or names right here.
And a short question. How do you deal with the job burnout?
I think we hit on it, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
That last one is, well, think about my day. A lot of you guys may not obviously be familiar with the way that my day goes, but let me just tell you generally, I wake up, I do my workout or my jujitsu, whatever the day calls for. And then I get in here about the same time, 8, 9 o'clock every single morning, depending on how the morning goes with the kids and my training and all that. And then I'm immediately on emails, like immediately checking emails, sending emails, checking up. I do my planning. I've always got my planner right here in hand. I've got my planning done, checking emails. And then midday is usually I'll be podcasting. Either somebody's coming on the podcast or you and I are recording, or I'm going on somebody else's podcast. And then, I wrap up my day with my planner again, and that starts all over Monday through Friday without fail. Okay. That gets boring and monotonous. You know how many times I've been on a podcast where they've asked me the same damn question over and over again? And I'm not saying that to be critical of the questions that are being asked. I'm saying, like, I've answered that question literally 2,000 times at this point. So how do you not burn out on that? Well, I think you got to mix it up, right? And you got to challenge yourself to improve. So instead of being butthurt that somebody asked me the same damn question over again and I've answered it 2,000 times, maybe I can answer it in a different way. Maybe I can experiment with the way that I'm addressing that question or that conversation, or looking at the way that I'm asking questions of myself or my guests and thinking about how I can improve in those circumstances, or looking at my current activities and not going completely AWOL on those activities, because you still need to get them done, but looking at what little branches that you can spin off of. So a podcast, great example. We started the interview podcast in March of 2015. I love doing that. I still do that, but I was interested in more and different. So what did we do? We did the Friday Field Notes. Okay. Completely different format, same podcast platform, same network, but it's the Friday Field Notes. Okay, good. Got the interview, got the Friday Field Notes. What else can we be doing? oh, you know what? It'd be really cool to answer listener questions every week. And so now we have the Ask Me Anything episode that comes out every Wednesday. So we're still in the same vein. That's the thing. Don't deviate so far that you lose focus of your primary activities, but just look for those little ancillary veins that you can kind of deviate from that keep you on the same main path, but just little sidetracks, right? That get you back onto the path, but keep things interesting and unique and give you a new perspective. That's what I've done anyways.
Yeah. Well, two thoughts as you say that. The first one is that from most outside looking in perspective, what you're doing looks and seems glamorous, and it looks and seems glamorous now because there's an audience. And so people think, oh, that'd be cool to travel and to go around and to be in these conversations with these guys and, all of that stuff. But it's not as glamorous as you think when you're in it, when you're doing it. And then at the end of the day, you figure out they're just conversations. These are just men, they're like you and me. They're just, they're willing to do something significant for a long enough amount of time to get the results that they get. And that's my, the one thing. But the second thing that I think of is that, I was taught a long time ago, like in my business, our presentations and the stuff that we teach our people, and it's the same presentation. It's turnkey. It's literally like a 2-page flip chart thing like that we go through and that we say to every single person. And so I've said the same thing tens of thousands of times. But one thing that one of my mentors taught me a long time ago is that it's the same thing over and over again, but it's not the same. The audience, the people, the listener, the people that you're in front of. Right. And so like when you said, I might need to change up my answers sometimes, you know what? Maybe you don't need to change up the answers, right? Maybe you answered that question 3 months ago, but now there's an extra 1,000 or 2,000, or maybe it's only 50 new people listening to what you're saying that needed to hear it that same way again. And so we can't get sick of our message when our message is effective, right?
That's a good call. Yeah.
It's that. And then the second main thought I thought of, he says, how do you deal with job burnout? I've experienced job burnout and it led me into my business. So have you, and it led you into this business, right? So you didn't like your job in financial planning. And so you started pursuing something outside of that on the side. You didn't just jump ship, but you started trying to find your niche, what you could be excited about, what you could be passionate about. We were talking about that excitement. So did I. I hated my other job. So it made me start looking because I hated it. Now I'm grateful that I hated that job because I wouldn't have been looking when I found what I do now. Right. And so maybe you need to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I will take a bit of a counter on that. Not that I think you're wrong. I think you're dead right, because obviously it's worked for me. But I want to give the other perspective of this, which is you need to be careful of that though.
Yeah,
because
that's what I'm saying. Maybe that's the alternative, right? It's not
right.
The thing you should do.
It's not. Yeah. Well, excitement is an emotion, right? Like you're excited. That's all that is. You're excited because of some sort of stimulus. And so excitement is the response, right? Or at least could lead you to the response. It's the reaction, I should say. And then you have a response from there. Yeah. So yeah, we all get burnt. Like you're excited about your work, Sean. And I think that's amazing. I'm excited about my work. Not always. Like this morning, I was like, damn, I got a bunch because I was gone the end of last week. And I had, my emails stack up and whatever. And I'm looking through emails. I'm like, I don't want to do this, but you know what? I did it because that's what needs to be done. And so I'm not excited about it, but I also know that it's leading me to the thing I am excited about, which is serving more men, saving more families, helping serve our communities, and basically at the end of it all, saving society, frankly, through the work of masculinity.
Yeah.
And if that means I got to send out 200 emails today, trust me, I don't want to sit here I can hear my kids downstairs playing right now. I know they're going to go out and play in the snow. I know I just got back and I missed my wife and I want to be with her. Like there's other things I want to be doing than sending 200 emails today, but that's the work that needs to be done because I'm not excited in the temporary moment. I'm excited by what this long-term vision I have is going to create. So let's not base our decisions solely off excitement. But if you start to notice trends, Okay. Like if I'm not excited about sending emails, got it. Check. Who is? That's weird if you are.
Yeah.
But if I show up every day for 2 weeks and I'm miserable, okay, that's now becoming a trend and something needs to be addressed there. But it's always interesting. I know you're in financial services. The gentleman I sold my business to about 6 years ago, a good friend of mine, Greg Black. It's so interesting to talk to him and to talk to you about how excited you are about what you're doing and how passionate you are about it. And I hear it and I'm like, oh, that sounds miserable. But simultaneously, I'm like, but I'm really glad for you that you're passionate about it. And so it's always so interesting to me to hear people talk about things. And I'm like, I get glossy eyes. I'm like, shoot me. But what that just goes to show you is that it's out there. You have to discover it. You have to find it. You don't have to follow my path. You don't have to follow Sean or Kip or Greg or whoever else. Like it's there. And there is something you can be genuinely passionate about.
Yeah. And there's two levels. You hit on the macro level of the difference you're making in people's lives, right? That's why I'm excited about my business, is because I'm changing people's lives. And that's how I look at it. That's how I approach it. And that keeps me motivated. But then there's also the micro level, of which you hit on too, which maybe most guys didn't catch, is the time spent with your family. You're going to give up some of that, but it's also going to afford you the time freedom to be able to do things like you just did with your boys, right? Going to the Hunt Expo and then exposing them to that environment, to those people, to those conversations and those things. That's motivation too. Like I'll be sometimes in moments of, yeah, I don't want to do this, but then I'll think, you know what? And then I'll attach myself to those experiences I've been able to have with my family, with my kids, whatever it is that's important to me on a micro level. And that pushes me also, right? So the combination of both is super powerful.
There's one other thing I've been kind of riffing on in my brain over the past couple of weeks. So, not this trip, but the one before I left. And my daughter said before I left, I don't want you to go, which I think is common.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You'll get
Like
a lot
kids
of
don't
those
want you to go.
moments.
And so it's hard because, you do want to go do the things that you want to do. And also you want to stay home. There's a dichotomy, and you have to find that balance. But there is something I've been thinking about that I think a lot of us will often overlook. And that is that your children need to see you pursuing something meaningful.
Yes.
They have to see it. And so I told my daughter, look, hon, I know you don't want me to go. I want to be here with you. I would if I could all day long, every day, all the time. But there's also other things that are really important. And you know what I do. And we've had conversations. And it's important for me to go do this because fill in the blank with whatever it is for you. And I want you to see what it's like for somebody who's pursuing something and excited about something and something meaningful. So I'm going to miss you. I'm going to take your picture. She always gives me a picture of her or the family. And she's like, here, will you take this? And I always put it right on my keyboard. I said, yep, I'll put it right here. I'm going to take that picture. I'm going to think about you. I'm going to call you. But also you got to know that I'm pursuing something that's meaningful, important to me. And I want you to see what that looks like. Don't overlook that either, because your kids need to see a great example of you going and doing something powerful in your life.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned growing up broke, and you had a similar experience to me. I grew up with a single mom, 3 kids. I was the oldest, and she wasn't at anything. And not because she didn't want to be at baseball games or any of that stuff. And I'm coaching my little guy. I went from coaching my oldest to now my little guy at 6 years old in baseball.
Hurting cats again.
Oh, it's so funny. And one of the kids on the team, his parents own a restaurant. And I had to take him home after practice. And at the end of practice, he was behind a tree crying. And I'm like, hey, Nico, are you upset because I have to take you home and mom's not here? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, what's wrong, buddy? You want to talk to me about it? I'm like, do you want to tell me? Do you not? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, yeah, I'm just sad because mom wasn't here to see my hit that I got today. Right. In practice. And he was like crying. And I'm like, look, dude, let me tell you, that happened to me when I was a kid and my parents weren't able to go to anything, but it's, why? It's because they're working, and because they are providing you with things and nice things, that baseball bat you have, that glove, your ability to play baseball and all those things. Cool. And I don't know if he's going to catch any of it, right? But I wanted to support his parents, help him know what they're doing and why they're doing it. But then also tell him, you know what, but it also makes you stronger. And then my son, my oldest, was helping me that day. He was able to witness that. And we're driving in the truck later that day. And he goes, man, that was so sad earlier. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, when Nicholas was crying about his mom, that was so sad. And I'm like, yeah, but didn't it make you grateful that you're in a position that your parents are at stuff, that I'm coaching you, that I'm able to do this, that we've worked so hard to be able to have the, what you have. And he's like, yeah, it really did. It really, for him, was an eye opener at 13 years old. Is great for him to be able to see that and appreciate it and understand it. And then from my level, growing up with parents that weren't at anything, I'm not mad at that at all. As a matter of fact, what it taught me was that if you want something better for your life, or if you just want anything at all, you got to get out and work for it, and yeah, there's going to be some sacrifice. I don't look back on my experience with my mom and working all the time, just trying to put food on the table for us. And now having kids of my own, it's mind blowing to me how awesome she was in being able to do that. And, I'm grateful for it. And so I totally agree. Your kids need to see those efforts and know why. Right. But I think it's also our job to communicate that to them.
You have to, because what a lot of guys will do is like, they'll understand, they'll get it. They may not vocalize that, but they'll say that to themselves. Oh, my kids understand. Do they? Are you sure? Because they probably don't. They're probably even if you explained it to the T, they would misinterpret it. They're going to look at it through their little eyes and they're going to misinterpret what you're saying and what you're doing. So you better be clear about why it is, and you better remind them often so they can formulate those connections.
Yeah. We do that with our wives too, right?
Totally. She gets it. She understands.
Really? She knows I love her.
Yeah. But then also you better balance it out with other acts that prove to them that you are. Because I think what a lot of guys do, I know I do, is like, well, I'm providing for my family. That means I love them. Yes, I agree. I agree with that. I think the overwhelming majority of the time, the men who are out in the workforce, busting their ass day in and day out, are doing it out of love. Because I know for a fact that what some of these guys are doing, they despise, they hate, they would not do that in a million years if it weren't for the family they're trying to provide for. So that's, I would say that's the large majority of, people, right? Of men.
Yes.
It's an act of love. So you might believe that because you're doing an act of love, that what's the problem? She should get it. Okay. Maybe she should, yes, she should be appreciative of that. Your kid should, but also you should find a way to communicate in a way that's meaningful to them too, which is being around, right? Your kids don't care about what you're doing. That's not love to them. It's being around them. It's being engaged. It's coaching their little league team like you're doing. It's wrestling at night, or just having a conversation on a drive and turning the music off and talking and listening and asking about their day. My daughter comes up to me this morning. She's like, hey, Dad, can I get you a piece of gum? No, I don't want a piece of gum, but I take the piece of gum because I know that's how she's communicating love to me. And I want to accept that. I want to accept that gift. You have to give those gifts to them in a way that's meaningful to them, not just what you think you're doing is right.
Absolutely.
All right.
Love it. Brian Dubs Taylor. Here's a question I'm dealing with directly. I'm a white belt with about 9 months of BJJ training, and I love the training and camaraderie, but I messed up my arm bad live rolling Friday and have to have an MRI. How does one stay in the sport without completely sitting out for months if you're injured?
I don't know the extent of your injury, but I hurt my knee a couple of weeks ago. And I probably shouldn't have trained, but I did anyways. And I just wore a brace and I trained. And the other thing I did is I told my training partners what I was dealing with. And I didn't roll with any spazzes. Like that I chained, like there was a couple people I said, I'm not going to roll with them for the next 2 weeks. And I was very deliberate. Well, hard is fine. Hard is one thing. I don't mind that, but like spastastic about it. They just,
that's like, I'm not doing drop into a guillotine with all their weight in the stuff. Right. Like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I chose my training partners wisely. And then it goes back to communication. I told them, so like Sean, if you and I were training, I'd be like, hey man, just so you know, I'm nursing a left knee problem. If you start tweaking it or whatever, I'm just going to tap.
Yeah, I'm not going to get you in a heel hook on
yeah,
that leg. Right?
Yeah, right. And most guys are going to, what most guys will do is like, oh, okay, I'll leave your leg alone. You know, if I was training with somebody and they're like, hey man, my right shoulder's hurting. Cool. I'll leave your right shoulder alone. And I'm not even going to attack it. That's good for me anyways, because then I got to learn to attack something else. Mm-hmm. And so the other day I was rolling, and one of the guys I was rolling with, he grabbed my ankle and sat back for, an ankle lock. And I just tapped like quick, like, hey, and he's like, oh, did that hurt? I'm like, no, I just don't want it to, because yes. I don't want anything messing with my leg. So I dropped the ego and I'm like, hey, tap, you got me. And he's like, oh, I didn't even did that hurt? I'm like, no, but I know you had it. You were going to sink it in. I'm not interested in dealing with this. And he's like, oh, cool. Yeah, no problem. Like, just drop the ego. It's cool. So I don't know the extent of your injury. Don't make it worse. Okay. So listen to your doctor, like within reason, because every doctor on earth is going to tell you not to train jujitsu at all. Chiropractors are not, actually chiropractors probably like jujitsu players, but job security, right?
Keeps them in business.
But yeah, exactly. Just be smart. Okay. Tape it up, put a whatever bandage or a brace around it, talk to your guys, be careful who you're rolling with, and just you can still go if you can. I don't know the extent of your injury, but I think that'll mitigate a lot of the risk.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I would add is, and I don't even know what the dummies are called, but those dummies that kind of have like the no legs.
Yeah.
You know,
like
what
the
I'm talking
bags
about?
with the arm.
Yeah. The bag,
definitely.
the heavy bag dummies with the arms and the head and the, whatever that you can roll around with. Roll with that. Learned how to keep your pressure, apply your chest and your head pressure and those types of things, spinning around the dummy, just whatever you can do. There's always things you can do. And ask your instructor, right? That's your instructors are going to know plenty of drills and things that you can do to continue to train. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good point. There's other training even outside of jiu-jitsu. I mean, look, maybe you got to take a couple of weeks off and you're really going to focus on building up your core, and you're going to work your core. You're going to start to build some shoulder strength, or you're going to get into, look, here might be a great opportunity for you to get into some stretching routines and exercises, or even yoga, which admittedly I don't do myself, but I know my game would improve if I got better at stretching and yoga and the flexibility.
Yeah,
you might have an opportunity out of this that will help you come back into the game better than, when you left it, except for the timing and things like that. So there's other things you can do for sure.
Yeah, I like it. All right, Christopher Campbell.
You do 31. Have all of these are super easy, dude. So awesome. Come on now. Give him a hard one, guys. Christopher Campbell. All right, what do we got?
I'm 31 and traveling alone to my first workshop/seminar in 2 weeks to learn about my trade and hone skills. Can you give some advice on how to network with other men as a business owner in your industry when you're still very new to it? It almost feels like imposter syndrome's kicking in because I know I'll be around industry leaders and people who've been doing it much longer than me. It's a good question.
Okay, it is. I like this question. So I'm reminded of a story that I heard about, I think it's Benjamin Franklin, and obviously a very wise person, very intelligent individual. And he had this theory about people that he either disliked or those people who disliked him. And one of the theories that he tried was he asked to borrow something from them. So for example, if Sean, you didn't like me for whatever reason, then I would go to you and I would say, hey, Sean, I'm trying to read up on X, Y, and Z, and I know you're into it. And do you have any books that I might be able to borrow for a week or two on the subject? And then you lend me that book and I read it and then I return it back. And that was his theory, that if he had people he didn't like, he would borrow something and then give it back to him. And what he found is that immediately improved the relationship, like instantaneously. It made all of that kind of dissipate. And wow. So it was very, very interesting concept. Yeah. But I think you can do the same thing here. And it's not like these people don't like you. That's not what I'm saying. But if you go with an open heart and an open mind, and let's say I go to this industry trade show and you're there and I go to you and I say, hey, you know what? I'm brand new to this industry. I've never been in this before. In fact, this is my first conference in this industry. And I came by myself because it's important. I don't know anybody here, man. Do you have like a word or two of advice for me? I guarantee without exception that you will be embraced and welcomed with open arms. I guarantee that you, if this is the scenario we're using, would say, oh yeah, here's some great ideas. Oh, and by the way, 5 of us are going to dinner tonight. If you want to join us for dinner, it's just down the road after the conference is over. I guarantee it. But all it takes is some balls and some humility. The reason you're dealing with imposter syndrome is because you want to go there and you want to be impressive to people.
Yes.
By exerting yourself and telling everybody how great you are and how wonderful and all the, instead, what you ought to do is go there with a humble heart and just tell people, hey, I'm brand new to this. I'm Ryan. Like, what's your name? How long have you been doing this? Oh, 30 years, man. That's awesome. What do you wish you would have known when you started? That's going to be more impressive than you walking around like you're king shit and you know everything, because everybody's going to see right through it. And also you're trying to fool yourself and you can't. So just be open, be humble, exhibit a little courage to ask those questions and you'll be embraced. I guarantee you will.
Yeah. I took on the mantra, I guess you could say, a long time ago of doing 2 things when I'm in a new environment is always saying, I don't know, and asking questions. And those are the 2 things. It's basically what you just said. It's too many guys are not, you're going to feel like an imposter if you're faking it. And right. The guys you're
and you
around,
are being one.
We all know those guys, like, and they stand out like a sore thumb. Like, when someone's full of crap, it, right. It's automatic, especially if they're trying to talk about something that, at a high level. It's very obvious, but on the other end of that, if you're a high performer in whatever industry it is, you also appreciate the guys that want to be sponges, that want to be molded, that want to learn, that want to grow, that want to be better, and that are willing to do whatever they need to do that, because it reminds you of how you were. And so you want to work with people like that. And you would think that's everybody. If you're that guy, it's not. There's very few that will come up that will not only have the balls to ask the question, but then they'll receive it well, that they'll, if they're not clear on something, say they're not, ask more questions, start the conversation. And if they're good guys, it makes you want to help them more. And so
of course,
if you're genuine and you're true to that, that's where you're going to build your network most effectively.
And then there's one other thing I would say, and I think you alluded to it, you kind of hit on it, is, so again, we'll just role play this out a little. I go to the conference, Sean, I meet you there. You give me some pointers. Here's how to put your results on hyperdrive. So what I'm going to do in this scenario is I'm going to take what you told me and I'm going to implement it. Okay. Yes. Like, I'm actually going to do it. And then that should go without saying, like, you actually do it. But here's what most people miss. I'm going to reach back out to you, Sean, and I'm going to say, hey, Sean, I don't know if you remember me. We went to that conference a couple of months ago and you said to do X, Y, Z as a new guy. And one of the things you told me is to go out and take this course or read this book or whatever. And just want to let you know and follow up. I bought that book, or I took that course, and I learned these 3 things, and I've been implementing for the company I'm working with. And man, we're knocking it out of the park. And I have you to thank for that. So thank you very much. Hope all's well. Hope we can catch up next year at the conference. Like, that's going to put your results on hyperdrive, because everybody is looking to here's how I should say it. The best way to be memorable and to build out a network is to add value to people's lives. But as a newbie, you don't feel like you have anything to add. Okay, so Sean, you're the veteran. I'm the newbie. What could I possibly have to add? You know what I just did right there? I added value to your life because I made you feel important and valued, and like you actually had something to share, and you made somebody's life better. And I provided that opportunity to you by being humble, by being courageous and having follow through on it. That's a great way to be valuable when you don't think you have any other value to add.
Yeah. And it's so easy now. You know, I think of
Easy.
when I started my business 23 years ago, it was like, you know, you had email, people, you know, generally wouldn't want to give you their cell phone number or something like that in most cases. And so I would ask for business cards. And now you have an email, you have their address of their office or whatever, just a way to contact them, like you said. And I would do exactly what you said. You know, thank you, I appreciate you, whatever it is. Any way you could find value, add value before you get there, you know, it is something that's valuable too. You know, as you were talking, I thought of kind of like what you mentioned at the beginning, the connection with Justin Wren and you know, I gave him the gift of your book, Sovereignty. And, you know, wrote a little note in it and stuff like that. And he's like, oh man, you know, I love this guy. I've been talking to Ryan and I want to get on his podcast and I'd like to have him on mine. And, you know, he said that. And so I remembered it. It didn't go further than that in the conversation, you know? And then, so I told him later on, hey, you know, it's, you know, I'd love to connect you and Ryan, whatever else. I think it'd be awesome. You know, just let me know. And he didn't get back to me on it or anything else. But then, you know what, then you reached out, right? He's like, yeah, I do, whatever. And then you mentioned it. And same thing, when I was with him, I mentioned it to you, like, hey, Justin said he wants to be on the podcast, right? It's just, so it's just connecting those things, helping you guys connect. It's just a normal, natural thing of what I do now. But it came from, you know, 23 years ago, when I was trying to network and get into better environments with guys. I learned to do that. I learned to try and find value, what I could add. And then more than that, finding the guys that maybe could fill things that they needed and making those connections. And back then it was, if I'm being totally honest, self-serving, to put myself in a better position to kind of build the relationship with them.
Which is not wrong. There's nothing wrong
not
with
at all. That's why I'm saying it, right? That's why I'm willing to say it, but then it became a natural habit. And now I don't think of it that way. It's just what I do. Right. And it serves everybody.
Yeah. Well, there's one other thing I want to share with you, and it might sound a little disingenuous because I'm sharing this with you and it's about you, but I want to share it because it will help people who are listening, especially this guy, when he's talking about networking and getting around other people. So yesterday on the podcast, when Justin and I talked, I went out of my way to ensure that we talked about you and that all bad stuff. And that's it. That's the lesson. Just share all air out everybody else's dirty laundry. No, I went out of my way to thank you publicly, to say, hey man, I'm grateful that Sean connected us. Here's how I know Sean. Here's what I think of Sean. He did that. Okay, I know it sounds a little disingenuous because I'm telling you this and it's about you, but the point that I'm making here is that you need to make sure that you're thanking the people who do these things for you too, right? Like you're the one that set that up. Like, what if I just got on there and I didn't express any gratitude for you? It would have been fine. It would have.
I wouldn't have cared. No. Yeah, I wouldn't care.
Right.
Like, I just want I just want that connection to happen, right? And you know that about me. Yeah,
totally. So it would have been fine, but what a missed opportunity to make somebody else feel better, to uplift and edify somebody else, to help somebody else in some small way. And those opportunities exist everywhere if you're looking for them.
Well, and it also serves you in a way that people see that. And then it also sets the tone and example for other people. The more, and especially in a men's movement, the more men hear each other lifting each other up and giving credit and recognizing, encouraging, praising each other for the things that they're doing right, the more that's going to spread, right? And that serves us way more than talking about the stuff people aren't doing right.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. All right. What else?
Okay.
Give them a hard name, guys. Come
on. Steve Gerard. That one was a little, there's a lot of syllables in there in the Gerard. Okay. So hopefully I got it right.
I think you did.
It's a OUARD. Okay. So
Oh, okay. A
they
little
kind of
different.
threw me a little loop
All
there,
right.
right? All right.
We'll count it.
Curveball.
We'll count it.
I recently started reading a book on grit and determination. For whatever reason, I didn't connect with the book at the halfway point. Would you battle through finishing the book or cut bait and move on to the next book on my list? And then there's kind of in a parentheses, I chose to finish reading the book.
So this is an ironic question that you're talking about grit and determination, about a book about grit and determination. And you're like, I don't want to finish this book. It's a funny question. No, I wouldn't finish the book. It would be my response. Like, how many books do you think have ever been written? Billions. Okay. How many books do you feel like you should absolutely read? Like, if it were up to me, if I were to take just a random shot in the dark, I don't think it would be any more than 1,000. Okay. But 1,000's still a lot of books. Like 100's a lot of books. I don't have time to read books that don't resonate with me, and they don't have to. And so like forcing myself to read a book is the last thing I'm going to do. Like, I'm just not going to do that. If I pick up a book and it doesn't resonate for whatever reason, I'm closing it. Maybe I gift it. Hey, like it's a good book. It didn't really resonate with me, but you might be interested in it, and you gift it. And then you pick up another book. Cause like, if you hate it and you're just forcing yourself to do it, you're not really going to take anything from that book. And isn't that the point of reading? To get new information that you can apply in your life. So guys, you have my permission, as if you needed it, to close the book that you don't like, give it to somebody else, give it to the library, donate it to your thrift store, like do something good with it, and then just find a different book. That's it. Easy.
Well, and as an industry standard in writing, you're taught, and I'm sure you've learned this, and we're learning this right now as we just did the final edit of my wife's book, that you need your best stuff in the first couple chapters
up front. 100%.
Yeah. And most people think they need to close strong or whatever, right? But when you're writing, it's the opposite. You have to open strong. So if you're not getting the best stuff on the front end, most likely you're not going to get anything good on the back end, right? And so I totally
the amount of people that read an entire book has got to be so small.
It's very small. Yeah. Almost nobody finishes any book.
Right.
Yeah.
And these are people who, like, even a book you like. There's books I love, and I'm like, God, I got 30 of them on my nightstand, and I love all those books, and yet I haven't finished them. So yeah, just put the book away. Find a different book.
Yeah. Agree. All right. Sean Busler. Initiating the conversation about birds and bees and sex with the daughter. Where to start? What to say? Is it different than talking about it with the son?
I mean, yeah, I think you could be a little more crude, probably a little more direct with a boy than maybe you would with a daughter. I don't know. I haven't had the birds and the bees talk. I tell you, she spent a lot of time on the ranch. That helps, because now we can always relate it back to, hey, remember that situation? That's what they're doing. Or, oh, those goats are playing. I'm like, they're not playing, actually. Here's what they're doing. So
yeah, they're making other goats.
That's right. So yeah, I think it's probably going to be different than a boy. For me anyways, it was pretty direct, and I don't actually like the concept of the birds and the bees talk, because it makes it sound like one day they hit this magical age where you sit them down and you talk with them for an hour about everything you could possibly think about when it comes to procreation. I don't like that idea. I think instead, you're always looking for opportunities to inject some of your thoughts and some of the things they need to learn just on a daily basis. Maybe your daughter says something about a boy she likes, and that gives you an opportunity to talk about, what's appropriate about kissing or holding hands, or as she gets older, taking it further. So it's not a talk, it's little opportunities. And then I think what that does is that when there needs to be a talk about it, and there does, like maybe before a first date, what's appropriate, those kind of things where you need to reiterate some of this stuff, you can draw back on past conversations and experiences that you've had over, 14, 15, 16, 18 years. But that said, I don't have a daughter old enough to have that, that talk, but we have had conversations about it.
Yeah. I have a little different take because my oldest is my daughter. And,
right.
With 3 boys younger than her. And I shouldn't say we, because my wife came up with the idea, but we have a book that she found that explains it. And it explains like the normal, it gives all the real terms, you know, shows a couple little like cartoony type pictures. Um, so they're mild, but they're also what it is, right? And so we've done that so far with 3 of our kids. We've done it with all of them at 8 years old. And at 8, we took them on like a little date, my wife and I. We go to a restaurant, then we go to like a park or something together. We go through the book, we teach them all these things, we have a conversation about it, and sometimes they're uncomfortable or they giggle on parts and whatever else, but you explain what all the parts are, right? This is a penis, this is a vagina, and all. So the funny thing is, like when we told my daughter the word vagina, right? She's like, she starts cracking up. She's like, the vagina from China, right? And it was like, so it was just like this funny outburst that she had, right? And we were cracking up. We were just dying, right? And so it was like, it was funny and all this stuff. And then it was a little uncomfortable in parts, but then it was done, right? And then we told her, and then the important part was explaining to her the value of her body and these body parts and what they're used for and how they're used for procreation, how they're used for when you fall in love and you get married with somebody, this is how you're going to build babies, right? And show your extra love and appreciation for that special person in your life. And so the conversation, you know, never has to be about what the act itself actually is, and more about the value in it, right? And so then all of the conversations moving forward are about that, about her value as a young woman, right? As she's growing, at first as a little girl, and then into a young woman, and then into womanhood. And now my daughter being 16, you know, moving quickly into 17, she values her body more because we've had so many conversations and discussions about it in that way, instead of it being a surprise or a topic that came up, or, you know, any of those things. And so we've been very proactive instead of reactive in that process.
Do you know the name of the book?
I'll grab it. It's in my safe.
Just put it in the as a response to his question in the Facebook.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, do that maybe after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
and the funny thing is it's in the safe, right? It's in the safe so that they don't have it to like throw around, but that also that we have it and we know where it is for, you know, for our youngest.
Yeah,
you know?
man. No, that's cool. You know, there's one other thing I like that, but there's one other thing I was thinking of, and this goes for those of you who don't have kids yet. Maybe you're not seeing a woman, or you're not married, or you're dating somebody. Is we really need to do a better job societally in ensuring that our children have both a mother and father in the home, because the conversations around these topics are going to be different coming from a father than they would coming from a mother. And neither one is less or more important. They're both needed. You know, my wife has talked with our 2 oldest about some of these topics, and it's different than the way I say it. And they need to hear it from both her and me, right? It needs to be, they need both. And so if you haven't got married yet, like, be very selective in who you're marrying. Be very, very selective in who you're deciding to partner with, and ensure to the best of your ability, and I know it doesn't always work out, that this is going to be somebody that you can be with forever, that you can raise children with, and you can walk hand in hand through life. If you're dating somebody, don't have kids with them thinking that maybe that's going to get you guys closer together, or this is going to be the next step of your relationship and really figure out if whatever. No, don't have kids if you aren't in a committed lifelong relationship. And I'll say it that way because I know there's a lot of guys who are like, well, I don't think I should get married. I think you should, but for the sake of argument, a lifelong committed relationship, and a girlfriend that you've been together with for 6 months is not a lifelong committed relationship yet. Yeah. A woman that maybe you've been with for 10 years and maybe you have some qualms about marriage. Okay, that's different. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. What I'm saying is lifelong committed relationship, to give the best possible chance of your children having both a mother and father in the home.
Yeah, I love it. Totally agree.
All right, let's take one or two more.
All right. Corey Brick. Can spouses reconcile if only one of the people in the relationship is choosing to take extreme ownership of their faults? I've been through several separations with my wife, with the most recent separation being the longest, over 1 year. I can say with a clean conscience that I have my own faults. I'm consistently striving to improve myself in every facet of my life, knowing that I have a long road ahead of me and that I'll never achieve perfection in this life. My spouse believes that I'm 100% at fault for our problems, and only if she sees sustained change over a long period of time, then and only then will she be open to say any sort of mutual effort towards reconciliation. I know I can only control myself and at best influence others. What if the other, my wife, does not believe in taking extreme ownership in our conflict?
Look, the answer is not, it's not the answer you want to hear, but the answer is 100% yes. Okay. You can definitely reconcile, but it's contingent on you being her whipping boy for the rest of your life. That's the answer. Yes, you can. You said it in your thing. As long as you take ownership and you do it for a long period of time, then she'll be open to reconciliation. So the answer is yes, you can reconcile. The real question is, do you want to? Should I? Do I want to be with a woman who's unwilling to take ownership of her own problems? Am I willing to change everything about who I am and shoulder 100% of the burden of our problems in our marriage and be expected to solve all the problems without any of her ability or desire to do the same? That's the question. Do you want to be with that kind of woman? I can't envision wanting to be with that kind of woman for a long. Look, I get that you might be in love. I get that there's attachment. I get that there's memories and there's a lot going on. But if you strip all that away, like, you don't want to be with a woman like that. No man wants to be a woman like that. So the answer to your question is yes, but that's probably not the best question to be asking. The best question to be asking is, should I even be involved with a woman who's not willing to take ownership? Because let's say this. Let's go through this scenario. So you said it yourself. You've been through a couple of separations, this one being the longest. Let's say you reconcile because you're her whipping boy and you do all the things that like a good little puppy that she tells you to do. And then she comes back. And then what's going to happen in 4 years when you make a mistake because you're a human? Is she going to be upset? And she's not changing anything about who she is. And you're not expecting her to. You're going to be walking around on eggshells. This, Corey, is a recipe for disaster. It might not happen today, but it's going to happen. It's a recipe for disaster. And now you're going to waste another 5 years of your life chasing around this woman who isn't willing to take care of herself. That's my thought.
Well, my thought as you say that, Ryan, I have no personal experience with this, but you do, right? You went through separation with Trish, and with you, and my question would be with you and Trish, as you're saying this, it almost seems like he has a list from her and she's not willing to accept the list, right, from him. And I don't know if they've done something like that or not, or if there's things that are like the majors, but how'd that work with you and Trish? Did you have was she like, you know what, I'd like to see improvement in this and this and this. And did she have things that you expected for her to do? Because I've only really heard you say that you worked on you and you getting better. So what was like the expectation did you guys have that conversation of like, I'd like you to do this and you to do this? And was there a mutual thing there? Like, I think that would be important context to bring.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. When you said you've only heard me say that, that's probably pretty true, is because that's what I can focus on, right? I can only focus on improving myself.
Mostly, majority. It's not the only thing, but that's the large majority of what you go to, right?
Well, you can influence other people, but you can't directly change other people's behavior, right? So you can influence by asking or by changing your own behavior and hoping that rubs off. There's a lot of things you can do to influence somebody else. One of the things that we did, and this was very helpful, is that she had to agree with me that we would both go to therapy. We would both go see a therapist individually. And that way, because there's things that I wanted to tell that she may not have been open and receptive to hearing, especially in the contention that we had in our relationship. But coming from a third party.
Did you do together
I'll get to that in a
separately?
second. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. So I went by myself to talk with a third party who's not emotionally vested in the decisions or in the relationship. And then my wife also went and did that. And then we also did that together. And then there was some real heated exchanges in the conversations, and having that third party
Expectedly,
there,
right?
of course,
Yeah.
of course. But having that third party there to say, hey, that's what you're doing is this, and that's not going to work. It's not going to help you. And she said that to me, and she said that to my wife in moments. And through learning some of these ways to communicate more effectively, we were able to reconcile. But yeah, if my wife was on the podcast with you right here, she would say the same thing. She would say, oh yeah, he had definitely had things to work on, and he was doing that. And I had things to work on, and I was doing that. So both of us were not initially, I will say that, she was out, she was done. But over time, we both began to work on and improve ourselves. It just wouldn't have worked any other way. There's no way it would have worked.
Yeah. I think that's valuable though, to bring in that third party. And so many people are not willing to do that until it's too late. Right.
Right.
The only thing I would add to that, and this is for all the other guys who aren't going through separation or any of that, is that if there's little things that start, maybe you even consider doing the therapy now, before it gets real bad, and
Right.
or if
Yeah.
you're saying, man, I don't like this and I don't like this is getting worse, you do it before it comes a major problem too. And I don't think enough couples do that, for the willingness of it. I think when we say the word therapy, we think, especially as men, it's because we're broken or that it's messed up or, whatever else. But in my opinion, the best therapy is utilized before it's broken, right? Is that you get
Well, it's
that
like going to a
help.
gym. Nobody says, I'm going to go to the gym because, my body's broken. Like, they go to the gym to improve themselves. They might be
Yeah.
fat, things might be banged up a little bit, but that's not over, but you go to the gym because that's how you take care of yourself, and you don't just go once and you're like, oh, okay, got it. Like, my health, check. No, like, it's a lifelong thing, and you slip and you fall and you get better and you're up and down, at least if you're like me. But your emotional and mental health is very much the same way. There is definitely a stigma around it, specifically for men, not
Yeah.
exclusively, but specifically for men. But that would be like having a stigma attached to going to the gym. Oh, what? You think you need to get strong? You think you need to be healthy? What a loser. Like,
Yeah.
no, like, nobody would say that, but we have this feeling about that when it comes to, our mental and emotional health, even our spiritual health. There's something to be said for that as well. You see dwindling numbers in church membership for men. And I think a lot of that is because churches have been overly feminized. And so guys, don't want to partake, obviously. That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, we need to take care of the entire picture of health, not just your physical. Like, we all know you got to be strong and healthy. Like, nobody would debate that. Physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, all crucial.
Yeah. And it can be preventative medicine, right? So like,
Yeah.
you're not going to not take the joint warfare when you have the achy joints, right? Like, you're going to decide not to take it because you haven't blown apart your elbow or knee yet, right? Or whatever. It doesn't make sense. It's a supplement. I think therapy is a supplement to a good relationship, even, right? You don't have to blow
Totally.
apart the relationship before you get it.
Well, again, it goes back to physical health. I know you're very healthy physically. Does that mean that you don't have to take care of yourself anymore? Because you're like, good, I checked off, I'm good. No, you have to keep doing it, and you
Even
do
more
it in
so.
different ways. There's different ways. So, like therapy, for example, one way is to see a therapist. Another way is to have a really good circle of friends, of high caliber men in your corner who you can talk with and compete with and, joke with. And like, there's different levels and layers to it. So you can build all of this out for an entire health plan, if you will. And you should be utilizing all the tools at your disposal. It doesn't make you weak to learn how to use a tool to get yourself stronger. Like, in fact, I think you'll be weaker if you don't utilize all the tools at your disposal to make yourself stronger. You'll be weaker than you could otherwise be. And that's not manly.
Yeah. I like it. Okay.
All right, man.
Is it good
Let's
last
wrap.
one?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's wrap that. Did you say last one or is that a good last one?
No, do you want there's the next one looks like a good last one.
Oh yeah. Go. Yep. Go for it.
Okay. And it's because the Valentine's question today happens to be Valentine's as we're recording this.
Okay. That's why you
From
have the red on. I was wondering. You're all Valentined out today.
I didn't even notice. That's awesome. It's funny. Hey, this is most men listen to this, man. Make sure you take care of your wife Valentine's Day. Which was yesterday when this comes out, right?
That's right. Yeah. No.
Or a couple days ago. Yeah. Okay. How much importance, this is from James Lay. How much importance do you put on Valentine's Day and other Hallmark created holidays, and what is appropriate?
So you're asking the wrong guy on this one, because my wife is an anomaly on this. And I'm not, I know everybody says that. Oh, my wife doesn't like Valentine. I know everybody says that. I'm telling you, like, genuinely, my wife is like, I don't do Valentine's. She's just not interested. In fact, last night I'm like, hey, so you want to go out tomorrow night? She's like, no, why? I'm like, well, it's like Valentine's Day. She's like, nah, I don't want to go. It's like too busy. Like we won't even be able to sit down. I want to go do that. So, like, my wife is an anomaly. But what I would say is just read the room. All right, read the room. If she's into it, be into it. If it's a simple gesture, if it's something that she likes a little bit more extravagant, just read the room and cater it towards, the person you love. And I think that's the best thing you can do. So, like, I don't buy into fake holidays. Valentine's a fake holiday. I don't care who you ask or what they say. Like, we all know Valentine's is a fake holiday. I don't like it. My wife doesn't like it. It works out pretty well, but I also try to do my best to take care of her throughout the year as well.
Yeah. It's mine's a little different because I'm not married to an anomaly. And
yes, most guys aren't.
Not that she loves Valentine's Day, but we have our wedding anniversary and Valentine's Day a week apart, right? So it's the 7th every year is our anniversary, and then Valentine's on the 14th. And so all my wife, she doesn't care as much about the holiday as much as the effort. And so what we do every year is we say, okay, what are you doing this year? Are you doing anniversary? Are you doing Valentine's Day? And we split it. And one of us puts in the effort for the anniversary. One of us puts in the effort for Valentine's Day, right?
Yeah, I like that.
And so this year, as an example, our anniversary got messed up because last minute we had to fly to Tennessee, look at our house, do all that stuff. And that landed on our anniversary day, right? So we were on a plane for our anniversary, and all my plans I wanted to do got screwed up. Okay. But I was taking that one, and I'll tell you, I was going to have I literally go to a marching band that was practicing locally, and I was going to have them do a whole marching band. Like, it gave them practice. They can put on their uniforms, like happy 20th anniversary balloons, like all this stuff. Right. And it was like next to nothing. You make a small donation to them. Right. But that effort, and my mom, I don't even know if she would like that, but I know she'd appreciate the effort. Does that make sense? And then awesome. Going to where we proposed, and they were closed on Valentine's Day or on our anniversary day because it was a Monday. So I couldn't do that. And I was, trying to figure it out. It got messed up anyways, right? So I couldn't do any of that. So now it's Valentine's Day, and I'm going to take her to where we proposed because they're open Valentine's Day, right? And so I'm going to do that. I'm putting together a thing. I've spent hours going into our storage and finding old pictures and doing that stuff, like when we met, when we first started dating, where we, when we lived with her mom and slept on this little bed with no bed frame and this tiny room, and like when we were broke and struggling, and those pictures, and the day that I proposed to her, and I found all these pictures, and I'm gonna put it in a little book, and remember this, and when we did this, and I'm stringing it all together, right? And so like that is not important to me, right? And it's actually kind of fun to go through it, but I know that effort is like, that's her love language, right? It's not the finished product as much as she knows that it took time and effort and those things, and whether she loves it or not, she loves the effort. So it's not about the day, it's about my wife, right? So what I care about is not that it's Valentine's Day. I care about her. And because I care about her, I'm willing, not, I don't even like using the word willing. I want to put in the effort because that's what's going to make our relationship better and stronger.
So there you go. It's somewhere between what Sean does and what I do is the answer. One end of the spectrum. I'm just wondering if I can be your Valentine with all that you do to go out of the way here. So it's go all out, get a marching band, do the scrapbooking.
And we don't, but that's our 20th,
nothing.
right? I mean, it's not like I do that with
answer.
everything, you know, but I'll be honest, like it just buying like a flower and a card, if that's all I did, I think she'd be disappointed. Does that make sense? And it doesn't have to be that much extra, but something that's beyond like that's going to take me 5 minutes. If she knew it took me an hour or two just to put it together, that means more to her, right? That's it.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. It's reading the room. It's exactly what you said.
That's what it is. Reading the room. Yep. All right, guys. Great questions today. Sean, thanks for visiting and helping out with this. I want to close this out because we've got something coming up and it's open and available right now. We're doing a big giveaway for iTunes ratings and reviews for the podcast. So all you need to do is leave an iTunes rating and review, take a screenshot of that, and then email brandy@orderofman.com. So again, iTunes rating and review, screenshot, email that to brandy@orderofman.com. Then on the 28th of February, we are going to draw one winner, and they're going to receive a signed hardback cover of Sovereignty. They're going to receive a brand new pair of Origin boots and Origin heavy hoodie. They're also going to receive Montana Knife Company's brand new MagnaCut stainless steel Speed Goat knife. It's incredible. Got it right over there on the desk. And they're going to win, in addition to that, a pair of 50-pound center mass bells from Sornex.
Wow.
So you're getting the book, the boots, the hoodie, the knife, and their center mass bells. And one lucky person will win all of that. So again, rating and review, iTunes rating and review, screenshot it, brandy@orderofman.com. You're entered. We'll draw that winner on the 28th. That's all we've got.
I love it. Thanks for having
you guys. Sean, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you guys. We will be back on Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.